I think he understands the concept of your live and five.
We ready? Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning on March 21, Saturday, March 21, for our continuance of our meeting on our mid-year budget. Again, this is a notice of call of an agenda for a special meeting. We're here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we March do have the technology. March 21, Saturday, March 21, for our continuance of our meeting on our mid-year budget. Again, this is a notice of call of an agenda for a special meeting. We're here. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning. So we March do have the technology. March 21, Saturday, March 21, for our continuance of our meeting on our mid-year budget. Again, this is a prayer, but we will have the call to order this morning.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor.
Present.
Director Greg Young.
Here.
Director Dr. Clifford Young.
Here.
Vice President Kyle Crother.
Here.
And President Channing Hawkins.
Here. With that being said, as far as adopting the agenda, in regard to adopting the agenda, we have 3 separate items that all have to be voted on individually. Emergency items to adopt an agenda. The first one is our
President Hawkins,
yes.
Because this is a continuation, isn't it just simply amending the existing agenda from the previous meeting? We're not adopting it again.
Okay. Thank you, Director Young. So we're adding emergency items to the agenda. We're not adopting the agenda, but adding emergency items to the agenda. The first one is the West Valley Water District coming from Human Resource Policies and Practices, which is the press contact and media relations, the new policy we're going to have regarding press contact and media relations. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that we are disseminating proper information to the press, to ensure that the individuals who are speaking to the press on behalf of West Valley are knowledgeable of the policies and procedures. I don't want to go on and, well, I guess I can. During this coronavirus, we've had staff members who were unauthorized to speak to the press, contact the press, give them misinformation regarding our agency, what our agency can do, what our agency is empowered, who is exempt as an emergency service worker, and nearly created a situation for our agency where it would have gave misinformation to over 88,000 of our ratepayers. That's literally what somebody decided to do. And they did not go through the appropriate chain of command. They didn't go to HR, they didn't go to general manager, they didn't go to legal counsel. They did not follow any of the procedures here at West Valley Water District. And because of that, we could have had misinformation put out there regarding our district and what was going on. And the misinformation was having a safety and security meeting where individuals were being walked through what our telecommuting policy was, what our policy pertaining to our emergency response plan is, as well as what we're doing to protect our workers and what their role is as emergency service workers. We have legal counsel, HR, and other individuals who are very knowledgeable about the process and doing everything they can to protect everyone here. However, some rogue element decided that they knew better than the President of the United States, the Governor of California, or our San Bernardino County as far as what is legal and what isn't legal. So with that being said, this is the policy that we're putting forth. It's an emergency item. So everyone understands the rules of the road has been reviewed by general counsel. So with that being an emergency item, we will require a 4/5 vote in order to pass it. So is there a motion?
4/5 vote to put it
On
on
the agenda, yes, and then,
Not
yeah,
on
the
yeah,
agenda.
4/5 vote to put it on the agenda. Thank you, Dr. Young.
And so, Mr. President, in relation to these emergency items, you should have that vote, and as Dr. Young points out, it has to be a 4/5 vote before you can even start discussing it or talking about it.
Oh,
As
okay.
it relates to all the rest of these items, you need to do that vote and get it on the agenda before you can start.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so number one, press contact media relations. The second one is the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic response plan. And the third one is our telecommuting policy.
On the third one, have we, adopted this, okay?
We adopted a draft version. This is the final version that staff wants us to vote on today.
Dr. Young, as you recall at your last meeting, you did pass the telecommuting policy, but it needed some revisions. It needed to have West Valley added to it, and it was very much in a form format. So what we've done is we have narrowed it down to the items that only relate to West Valley. We took out a lot of the federal and state language that was not necessary for a West Valley telecommuting policy. And so this is the amended policy now before you. This is to amend the policy you previously passed.
Hi, this is Janelle Barrera. The policy that you emailed yesterday, was that the final draft?
We have it
Yes.
back here.
Yeah,
Okay. Clarence, I emailed you a couple of days ago. In reviewing it with
What?
Daniel, we also emailed you.
Ms. Barrera, unfortunately, the policy that we have is the one that we have in front of us now. And, as far as speaking and when individuals can speak, unless you're called upon by recognized by the chair, you are not able to speak.
Mr. President, we need to vote on whether to put these
you don't
on
want
the
my-
agenda or not.
My feedback then.
And 3 separate.
No, we do want your feedback, but you have to wait to be recognized by the chair, and the board members are commenting right now.
We need a motion to put these on the agenda.
Yes, we need a motion to put them on the agenda before we can discuss, and then at that time, when we're discussing the individualized policy, Ms. Barrera, we'll take your feedback at that time.
Okay, that sounds better.
Okay,
Okay, so is there a motion on the floor, Mr. President?
I haven't heard one yet.
I'll make a motion that we put the coronavirus pandemic response on the agenda as an emergency item. This one.
Is there a second? Is Mike and Kyle on the phone?
I'm good.
Yes, Kyle, here.
Okay, we need a second.
I'll second it.
I'll second.
Okay, we second, call for a vote.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Yes.
Director Greg Young,
Yes.
Director Dr. Clifford Young,
Yes.
Vice President Kyle Crowther,
Yes.
and President Channing Hawkins.
Yes.
All right, and I'll make a motion to put the telecommuting on the agenda as emergency item.
I second it.
Call for the vote.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Yes.
Director Greg Young,
Yes.
Director Dr. Clifford Young,
Yes.
Vice President Kyle Prather,
Yes.
and President Channing Hawkins.
Yes. All right, you got one more policy, fellas?
Yeah. I'm having some difficulties with this media policy.
Okay.
I would rather refer, unless it's really needed to be adopted now, I'd rather refer this back to the External Affairs Committee.
Well, technically, it's an HR committee.
Oh, it's in HR?
Mm-hmm. It's a Human Resource and Policies Practice.
Did the HR committee recommend this?
Mike, Chief, did we have an opportunity to review this policy? The HR, I'm not sure if we had an opportunity to review it.
Huh?
I'm not sure if the committee had an opportunity to review this policy.
The HR policies?
Yeah, the press contact and media relations policy.
That is correct. We did not have an opportunity to review it.
Is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make the motion to add it to the agenda.
Is there a second? All right, is there a second? Okay, so there's a motion, there's no second. This motion dies to add this policy. Everybody understand that? Kyle, do you understand that too?
Yes, I'm good with that. I did not get to review it myself either.
Okay, understood. Okay, so that one dies. Okay, so we have the telecommuting and the coronavirus policy passed.
Well, been added
Added.
to the agenda.
Thank you, Director Young. Thank you, Director Young. I do want to say, in regard to these policies, this has been a week that we have responded with a number of items, operationally as well as policies this week. So it is be very hopeful that we get these policies passed today. We are behind the 8 ball with this stuff, and I want to make sure we're right where we need to be.
Which policy are we taking up first?
We can take up the telecommuting policy first.
I'll make.
I move approval of the policy.
I'll second.
Okay, call for the vote.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Yes.
Director Greg Young,
Yes.
Director Dr. Clifford Young,
Yes.
Vice President Kyle Prather,
Yes.
and President Channing Hawkins.
Yes.
I move approval of the, pandemic response plan.
I'll second.
Call for the vote.
Sorry, can I just also point out to staff, can we rename the actual file that we keep emailing, because it still says Rubido on it? Thank you. Okay. I'm good. Sorry, Mr. President.
Okay.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor,
Yes.
Director Greg Young,
Yes.
Director Dr. Clifford Young,
Yes.
Vice President Kyle Prather,
Yes.
and President Channing Hawkins.
Yes. Okay, now moving on to the mid-year budget.
Good morning, directors, staff, and public. We are going to continue our discussion on the mid-year budget process that began last week. I've made some changes and also prepared a little bit of a summary, well, not a little bit, but a summary of the changes that the board had requested. I want to apologize for some of the typos in the language area, but the numbers are are accurate. The numbers are there's no typos in the numbers, so I just want to clarify that. Basically, what we did was went back in and talked to each department. So I want to thank the department heads for their contribution to this revision. And we've looked at every area where we could reduce some cost. As you know, we are now in March and we have a few more months before the end of the year. So I've actually reached out to the departments and let them know that we're close to the next year's budget. So if they need any equipment or personnel, things of that nature, let's wait until that time to put it on. So before you are basically changes within the departments, moving funds around to cover shortfall, moving funds around to cover items that was underfunded, and to make the budget whole. After that entire process was looked at, on page 5 you'll see the total subtotal of the changes. About $2 million is what we moved between departments, and the bottom line is we are saving $105,150, which is reducing our expenditures at this mid-year point. Questions?
I really want to commend the CFO for putting together this mid-year budget. It looks like a mid-year budget.
Thank you.
Where you're making adjustments rather than a lot of additions. So as far as I'm concerned, unless I'm missing something, I do not have any questions.
Okay, Director Gregory.
I too would like to thank you, Ricky, for putting this together. This is very helpful. I did ask you at the last week about the revenue for the last 5 years.
Yes.
As far as water sales, were you able to put anything together on that?
I do have that here.
Okay.
So let me grab that and I'll
Because of course, being the details person I am, I want to know where are we in comparison to previous years on that line.
Yes, so you're looking at just the water sales, right?
Correct. I mean, right now I'm showing that as of, I guess, this was through February, we were about in the 70-ish range for our water sales.
Yes,
Is
and
that kind of in line with previous years?
that's yes, we are on average between 66 to 70%.
Okay.
At this time,
As of February.
as of February, because I'm looking at March right now. So as of February, yes, we're in that range.
Okay, so we're in line with prior years, because again, my biggest concern was last year, we ended up being quite a bit under at the end of the year. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to miss that mark again.
So I'll go through a little bit of last year with you, so I can give you more of a realistic picture. Overall, we closed the year with positive revenues.
But I just want to focus in on that.
And that's what I was
sales.
getting into, yes. The water sales
We had a lot of extra money.
was
coming
down.
in, separately, so
Yeah.
I don't want to mix the two.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
On the water sales, shouldn't we be above last year?
It depends, because, the seasonal effect, consumption, if we had any droughts, if we had more rain, less rain, there's a whole host of things that contributes to sales.
What I would be concerned about is that we have a lot of construction going on, new housing. Shouldn't that increase ourselves?
It depends on when the meters were, or when the connection was established and when utilization started. We may have a lot of construction going on, but not every property was sold and occupied at the same point in time. And as the new homes are being built, they're being sold upon completion. So.
Let me ask Linda a question. Last year or 2 years ago, you put together a chart for us showing the new projects that are coming online that would impact our water sales. Do you recall that?
Yes.
I can't hear you. Did you hear me?
Yes, yes, I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. One of the reasons that we may be seeing a reduction in water sales is conservation. People may be using less water than they normally use. New fixtures that are, high efficiency. There's a lot of different factors, as Ricky said, that could contribute to the decline in sales. Even though we may have more connections, people are using less water.
With the efficiency in the water, toilets and
Landscaping.
Landscaping is,
landscape.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Because landscaping is primarily recycled, reused water.
It is not
Oh, it's
recycled.
not?
No.
Okay, sorry.
The drought was.
Drought resistant.
But the construction part, they use a lot of water in the construction part.
Yes, they do.
Okay. All right. Okay. I thought it would be up, but I'm wrong.
It's only the mid-year. It's only the mid-year.
All right, I do have a few further questions. I'll try to go through them quickly, because what you covered here, I think, answers some of those questions. But, and Ricky, I'm not sure if you can answer this, or this would probably be more for Martine, who's not here, but did we get a big bump in our life insurance? Because I noticed in several of our cost centers, our life insurance costs were way over budget through February. Can anyone speak to why that's the case? Did we not budget enough for that section?
I'll touch on it, and
Benefits
maybe if
section.
General Manager wants to chime in, he can.
Yeah.
The salary and benefit portion of the budget, first of all, it's not to the penny because of the fluctuations in percentages and things of that nature.
Yeah.
A lot of the benefit-driven factor are salary-based.
Mhm.
So if our salary base increase, then of course those benefit factors will increase along with it. The life insurance, if we added employees, that could contribute, and also rate increases can contribute.
I mean,
So those are a couple of different.
I'm just curious, because in all the years I've sat on this board, I've never seen life insurance off budget as much as I've seen in this mid-year budget. So I'm just curious, as we're looking ahead to the next year's budget, I mean, I want to understand, why is it we saw a spike this year? Are we not allocating enough when we are doing our budgeting when it comes to the benefits? Because most of the time, yeah, you're right. We kind of said, these are how many people in the positions. You guys put in a budget for benefits, and very rarely have I ever seen us hit the red line on those.
I can do some additional research on that, but another factor is also our workforce, the age.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't know if we got like a letter from our insurance carrier saying
That I
going
don't
up or
know.
something, or
Maybe GM
I
can.
mean,
I'm not sure if you. So.
I don't have an answer.
Okay, so we'll have to.
Well, I mean, again, looking forward to here, probably in the coming weeks, we'll start working on the regular budget. That might be an area we
Something.
might want to check, because I noticed in almost every department, we were considerably over 100% in February, so again, it's like, what happened there? Because normally we're pretty good there.
Okay.
Then I know that probably for the remainder of the year, we're definitely probably not going to see a lot of training opportunities, but I know some departments were pretty good at using the money we'd set aside for training and others didn't. So like in 5210 pumping, only 8.6% was used in training. So, I mean, this again, just kind of looking forward, that we might want to kind of have conversations with the departments who aren't utilizing those budgets to find out what are some of the barriers, because if we as the board set aside money for you all to be getting additional training, we need to make every effort to try to get the training you all thought they should have gotten. Now, I realize the rest of this year's shot. I mean, you're not going to get any training in for the rest of this year, so that's pretty sunk for the year, but looking forward to hopefully a more stable next year if this crisis doesn't continue forever.
One of the factors that contributed to the training overall district-wide is the availability of staff to take advantage of the training, because we do have.
But like I said, some departments were pretty spot on or pretty close
Yes.
to using a lot of their money, but like I said, I mean, particularly like pumping, which is page 4 here, 8.6% through February. You know, we'd set aside $24,700 and they've only spent about $2,000 of it. So it's like, what was it you were planning on doing and why didn't that happen? Yeah. Now then, and maybe Clarence or someone can speak to this, but on the bottom of page 4, I see that we're asking for $100,000 towards repair and maintenance. Can someone just kind of explain why we were so far over this year as far as repairs and maintenance?
Yes, can Joanne speak to that, please?
Yeah.
I'm Joanne Tran, Operations Manager. We received some invoices from last year. For one example, the big logo of the big reservoir cost $25K. It got paid under this year's budget, and there are multiple invoices also.
Okay, so it's kind of more that we got hit with some carryover from the previous year. Okay, all right, thank you. Now, water quality, same comments as far as insurance and training. Moving down here. Now, in the FBR and the FBX, and again, this is just me being a stickler for detail. Is there any reason why telephone is so high for the FBR? Normally, again, that's kind of a stable number that I don't generally see much fluctuation in, so.
Before, we've added internet services out there. We've
Okay.
added some additional, phone circuits for the, SCADA system for
Okay.
remote access.
And so we hadn't planned for that in the original budget then?
No,
Okay.
we're also looking at, changing some services because we need additional, internet services out there.
So do we need an additional allotment for the telephone? Because even though we're 171%, we didn't ask for any adjustments.
But we're also looking at our other telecommunication services, so I'm not ready to change that at this time.
But as far as within this department's budget, we're not asking for any addition.
No.
Yeah.
Not yet, not until we evaluate the
I mean,
services.
Now, and then what is the other miscellaneous district cost? Can someone explain what that is?
Joanne.
Because that was 164%. We're adding 25, which is fine. I just didn't know what that was.
That would be plant equipment, mostly plant equipment, process, like valves, actuators.
Okay. I mean, that goes under other miscellaneous and not operating supplies?
I'm sorry, are we on FXB or are we on the roamer?
This is page 8, the FXB 5350. Other miscellaneous district costs, we're at 164% as of February.
That's my understanding, but that's been kind of like a contingency fund for everything that doesn't get enumerated.
Okay.
There were unexpected repairs that we have to do,
Okay.
and that might be it. And the equipment actually is quite expensive. Like to repair an analyzer, that could be $5K or $10K.
Okay. Well, when we look at budgeting for next year, because, I mean, it sounds like a lot of what might have ended up in there probably should have maybe been under, repairs and maintenance and operating supplies, but we just might need to look at that particular line as far as what actually should be in it versus maybe what we end up putting in it this year. I mean, I have no problem adding the 25,000. I was just curious as to what it was.
And maybe a recommendation, next year I'll look at the categories a little closer, and a recommendation could be to just eliminate the miscellaneous categories.
No,
or
you
move
need
it
a
into-
contingency fund.
So that,
You always need a contingency fund.
Yeah,
oh,
That's
yeah,
what
well,
this is.
right,
yeah.
okay.
But at the same time, while you need that, certain things should be
Needs to be
going to
included.
these other categories.
Yeah.
I think it's, you need that contingency or miscellaneous, but I agree with, I think what you're saying, Greg, that it seems to be, had been mislabeled or misplaced in the wrong category.
Correct. I have no problem putting a miscellaneous or contingency category, but yeah, certain normal things should be in some of the other items, so thank you, Joanne. And then Romer, we have quite a bit of overtime at Romer, and our regular full-time salaries is down, is this because we're short-staffed there at the moment, or? Yeah.
On call.
Currently, we're down 2 budgeted positions.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's what I figured it probably was, because it was like, well, we have plenty in here, why are we doing so much overtime, but that's what I figured.
If we're short 2 staff, is there an effort to fill those categories?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes, they've been before. The HR committee about filling those positions.
So,
Okay, all right.
all right, yeah, but next meeting.
All right.
Okay, then for, I think continuing on the, Romer, I noticed that our electric was a bit higher. We've already exceeded the budget for the year. Are we just utilizing Romer more than we anticipated for the year? Is that why?
Yeah, we're running the plant at full capacity whenever possible.
Yeah, okay, all right, I just wanted to clarify that.
Which is a need to expand the plant.
Well, we're having that debate in engineering planning. But yeah, I mean, if we're using it more, obviously our electricity costs are gonna be higher, so I just wanted to clarify that. Then moving on here, I'm gonna skip all the life insurance because I already mentioned it once. With customer service, 5510, notice that we're using a lot of overtime. Can Jeremiah, can someone speak to
Yeah, can you
that?
come forward?
Because we're at 153% as of February.
Well, yeah, I have that same question too, because unlike in the operations where there's this paramount need for staffing, I'm a bit confused as to why in customer service we would have to use so much overtime.
Yeah, so we currently have 2 vacancies in customer service, and we had 2 CSMRs that are on family and medical leave.
So, but explain the overtime, because they're only, unlike Romer, which is a 24-hour facility, these other places are 24 hours. Yours is a very set time, and so why would there be such an overage in overtime?
So we actually had a lot of staff, and I'll kind of speak to this, jumping into this, but we had a lot of staff kind of come in halfway through, and then people went off on FMLA. So what we had to do is have current existing staff that was already trained in the program do overtime.
For what exactly?
Just basic needs of the customers to handle the current call flow that we have.
But your phones are
Hour
only,
times, yeah.
yeah, phones are only open during a set time.
Yeah, so we had basically the overtime hours were people coming in off the 410s.
So have you, general manager now, is your department, is this department that falls under external affairs the hours of work and the work schedules, are they in line with the operational need?
They're in line with the operational need, but what it is, it's about call volume, but it's also not only call volume within a time. And so we need a certain number of people here to answer those calls. And when you don't have that number of people to match the volume of calls coming in, you have to bring in extra people.
But he said they were getting called on their day off because they're working 410s instead of a 980 or a straight, 8 to 5. And so he's saying, what I understood, and correct me if I'm wrong, the reason why you said they're doing so much overtime is because they're working 410s instead of a 980 or a regular Yeah, 1040. I mean, not 1040. Yeah, 1040. Yeah, 1080.
The move to
1080.
410s last year was an experimental move,
Uh-huh.
but it was determined, as Nadia predicted, that we would have to go back
Mhm.
to either a 980 or a 540 or
Right.
something.
Okay.
And I had brought this concern to several board members and to the general manager before about the overtime expenses just because of the 410 schedule. Now, sometimes it's tough with customer service and the call flow.
So are we rolling that back then?
And the answer is yes. We need to come to the board, HR committee,
Well,
and then
well, we don't, I mean, as far as, scheduling, that's in the jurisdiction of the general manager. We just pass policy, so we would pass if we had another alternate schedule that you were recommending. I don't know, some 3-day a week
Yeah, I mean,
or something else,
last
but.
year we ran everything through the HR committee.
All right, but I mean, you can send you can still come to the HR committee, but as far as your understanding and implementation between you and the AGM.
It's the needs, it's
It's
the
the needs.
business needs, and we simply just approved the different schedules
Right.
each department can implement as needed.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
so if the 410 is, as it seems to be, causing us a lot of issues with overtime, then you guys might need to consider going back to the regular 5 days a week schedule. You know, but I don't think, to President Hawkins' point, that needs to come back to us.
So it doesn't come back to us.
No problem. then we
And also
will
keep in
implement.
mind the new system implementation too, as far as the Tyler system implementation.
Okay, so Tyler was not in place, the new Tyler system operation was not in place during the times of these accruals of overtime.
So
I'm
staff,
missing the connection.
just real quick, so staff had to go to meetings to fill in, to basically do training, do different things to get ready for the Tyler implementation. So we would be short-staffed at times when we had people in certain meetings or training.
How many meetings was that, Jeremiah?
I could probably get you a report on that, but I'd say anywhere from 15 to 20.
So staff had to be called in 15 to 20 times on their day off for the
No,
training?
not on their day off, but there would be times where other staff would have to cover, or we wouldn't want to have a shortage, so.
But you said 15 to 20 times that happened.
Yeah, probably about 15
So
times.
15 to 20 times you did not properly manage your staff resources?
No,
In order
so,
to have coverage for the customer?
so again, we came in for, again, I kind of came way halfway through this, but just to come in and fill in the budget, or to fill in the gap for when we were doing the implementation process.
Okay, you came in halfway between what?
Oh, I mean, as far as predicting this budget and where we're at staff levels, and then we had FMLA, we had
How long have you worked here?
I've been here about 7 months, right? 8 months?
8 months?
8 months, yeah.
April, May. So.
Yeah.
April, May of last year,
Yeah.
so that's 11 months. So when was this full year budget adopted in? What year, what June?
June.
It was June, the end of June, so you've been here during this whole budget time. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, so basically what I'm saying is we're filling in staff gaps where we have them, and you won't see a continuation of overtime now. But But we have, like I said, 2 people on FMLA is the big reason.
Okay, because customer service is really, really important. I mean, I have the story where I got kind of involved in this. My whole interest was the day when my water came out gray, and when I called down here, nobody picked up the phone. So I'm very attentive and concerned about customer service and want to make sure that our ratepayers are being responded to and that we're operationally in the place we need to be. So I don't have any questions.
Are the vacant positions also going through the HR committee at this time?
That was actually a conversation I was having with the general manager as far as where we were with staff placement. It's a little bit. It's a little bit more of a complicated process than I'd like to bring out in the board meeting. But
Well,
right,
I think they have a sense that they can go do their job.
So
The question is it before the HR committee? That's a yes or no answer. That's not a confidential.
Oh no, I'll gladly offer that no, but we have certain people on leave, so that's part of the reason.
So, right, but I think going back to what we started the conversation as far as operational need and making sure the staffing is appropriate and the scheduling is appropriate with operational need.
Yeah, and that goes back to we're probably going to have to change the schedule.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I wanted just to be open and transparent with you guys about this process.
Okay.
Also, Mr. Brasowski, operating supplies, you're at 156% on operating supplies through February. I mean, I see we're adding another 500, so we're basically doubling your budget for the year, but was there any particular reason why it was so much higher than initially anticipated?
So early on, we've just had more contact with customers. We've had different things that we've ordered for meter tags, things like that, so.
Okay. Okay, and then I saw, and I believe the CFO had mentioned this, but, I mean, we already talked about the bank card expense, but also the armored car cost went up?
Yeah, and that's just an increase in days.
Okay.
That's from 2 to 5 days, and that was required of us.
So they're coming here more often?
Yeah, it's a more often use,
Okay.
and it's a requirement.
All right, thank you. Then moving on to, okay, so for administration, now this may just be a restructuring of maybe some of our managers' contracts, but Mr. General Manager, the vehicle allowance, looks like we need to, we're making a small adjustment there. Was it just not enough we put in initially, or?
One of the individuals was not included in the budget. That was an oversight.
Okay.
Mr. General Manager, who was not included in the budget? Or which position?
It was the HR manager, if I remember correctly. Was it the HR manager or
I think it was the AGM that's
the AGM?
no longer here.
Oh, okay.
But they were included in the budget last year, in the budget.
No,
Well, you're saying one got dropped off.
One got dropped.
Yeah.
One.
and
Well, let's make sure we get everybody on there for next year.
No, yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And then, now for other consultants, I know that we have used a lot of different consultants here administratively, but we're asking for another $110,000. Is there specific consultants we're looking to bring on in that time frame? I mean, so for the consultants, other consultants, we're adding 110,000. I mean, we're 150% over for the year already, but I mean, are we looking to add more consultants in the remaining couple months here administratively?
This is to cover the cost of a few consultants that we've hired, like the recruitment consultants that we're bringing on board. We have to cover their costs. We're looking at probably $30,000 to $50,000, depending on what they're doing.
All right, okay. I mean, because when you add it all in, yeah, that about wash out.
Very quickly there,
Yeah.
on the administration.
Mm-hmm.
What was the final number on our election expenses?
It was approximately 200,000, like 198, somewhere around there. Matter of fact, last week is when we received the email, so that's why we were able to.
That was
for November.
For all three districts.
There was three elections.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Three
Yeah,
divisions.
they originally gave us an estimate that we should budget around 321,000, but the actual expenditures, was it 321,000?
321 was originally budgeted, and the cost was, like I said, approximately 200,000. So we used the remainder in the mid-year adjustments.
All right, so Ricky, going to accounting now. For starters, haven't used a lot of money training-wise, but that's something we can look towards next year. But can you explain to me, because I know we have a line for consultants under professional services, but then we also have one for fiscal agent.
Yes.
We've only used 24% of. What exact? Can you maybe explain the difference between? Because I know, like, we just added a consultant to help you with the policies and stuff. So I'm just trying to understand what the fiscal agent does and maybe why we couldn't pay for it that way.
The fiscal agent is the trustee, the holder for a bond.
Okay.
Document. Yeah, and that's what that is.
Okay, so it's related to the bonds.
Yeah, we actually pay them to administer the
Gotcha.
bonds.
Okay, that makes perfect sense to me. All right, engineering, and I guess that's Linda. Have a few questions for you on the engineering department.
Depends on which side. Cause there's.
5630.
And the other one.
Yeah. So there's a bit over on the overtime. Can you maybe speak to that?
Yes, Linda Jadetsky, Engineering Services Manager. We've had some overtime for our inspectors. They've been required to work on weekends and at night because of road closure issues with the city of Rialto.
I'm sorry, you said specters?
Inspectors.
Oh, inspectors. That's like specters. Sorry. Okay, all right. That's understandable. And then I did kind of want to ask about the expenses related to training. I mean, you were pretty spot on, but adding another 6,500 for the remainder of the year?
That request was from the CIP department.
Okay. I mean, again, with everything going on in the world, is any of that training actually going to happen?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's for the new inspector that they have, on the CIP side, and a lot of this training is online.
$6,500 worth of it?
Well, he's got project management training that he's gonna do.
Okay.
He's got, some inspection training that he's gonna do, so.
Okay, well, I mean, if you think that, I mean, again, I'm just looking at like pretty much all conferences, all external stuff is being like shut down right now, so I wasn't sure why we were adding.
Most of the stuff we've been looking at
Okay.
has been online.
Okay, all right, and that's for our new inspector?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then, information technology, I guess, which one of you guys are gonna talk about? So I was just kind of asking, particularly, we have miscellaneous high-speed internet, and then professional programmer. Looks like we haven't utilized those as much. I mean, were we just not doing as much as we had anticipated with those miscellaneous columns?
Sure. So first off, John Stevenson, Director of General Services. With the miscellaneous high-speed internet services, we did wind up trending a bit lower than we originally planned this year. However, we did not make an adjustment in that line item because of some of the deployments that we're doing to telecommute. We do anticipate towards the tail end of this year, we'll pick up on some of those expenses.
Okay.
In relation to programming, we did have a couple of projects that did come in under the original budget. However, we didn't make any adjustment there in the mid-year simply because as we kind of transitioned to the telecommuting and also as we're implementing, the Tyler utility billing, we wanted to leave some resource there if necessary for any ancillary programming.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And then, Mr. General Manager, I'm not sure if you can speak to this, but on the GIS, this 5645, is there any reason why we don't have, I mean, because don't we have people working in GIS? Why is there no like salaries and benefits listed here?
Under GIS, I'll let John answer, but we have 85,000 for the one individual.
So I believe that problem or that issue has been corrected now, but if you recall, in last year's mid-year budget, GIS was originally under the engineering department.
Mm-hmm.
The board approved separating that out. And at the time, what we were going to do was start charging their time to the new department at the start of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So basically what happened is that paperwork was not processed in HR, so it hasn't been charged there correctly. Those, I believe, have been caught up in that.
Yes, there's a couple of positions where I actually worked with HR to get the paperwork completed before we get into the next year's budget, and
Okay,
this
so
is one.
it'll be resolved for.
Yeah, we're gonna, it's processed, after this budget is.
Because I was just looking at this, I'm like, oh, we have Talat, so why isn't he showing up here?
So that's to do a journal entry to
Water
compute all the
resources
expenses.
management.
Yeah, I'd flag that one next.
Yeah, same thing.
Okay, all right, well as long as we get it resolved for next year.
Yep.
Going through here.
Excuse me, Mr. Board Members, if I may. I was having a hard time unmuting my mic, but I know how to do it now. This is Rosa regarding the CIP project. I did want to chime in that training is still gonna be available online, so that's not gonna affect, our budget.
Great, thank you, Rosa.
Thank you, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. So for human resources risk management, I was hoping Martina would be here, but maybe Mr. General Manager, you can speak to it. But we had line item $16,000 for an employee wellness program. And we've spent very, very, very little of it this year. And I was kind of wondering I mean, I realize we've had some hiccups, to put it mildly, in that department, but President Hawking, do you look like you might want to say something?
I saw that issue, and I know I talked to the GM and the general and the HR director, because part of our wellness program is a display out here that has not been adjusted since 2018. Are we going on 2018? For our wellness program, there's pictures and activities, so I know I had that conversation with our interim person and the general manager that we've been,
Yeah, because I think, I'll maybe speak out of turn, but I think all of us board members believe very strongly in the wellness of our employees, and we set aside funding for that, and I was a little disappointed to see that we've only spent less than 4% of it for the year.
That is a deficiency in our activity.
Okay.
Correct that.
All right, thank you. All right, public affairs. Come on down. You're the next contestant on this. So Nasim, I know I already kind of give you a heads up, but maybe you can explain for the other board members, because it looks like you're a bit over on your salaries and benefits. And I know that you had some comments you wanted to give on the reasons for that.
Definitely. Nasim Faruqi, Public Affairs Manager. In regards to our salaries and benefits, we've had a change in staff. Obviously, we've had to cash out a chunk of vacation. Also, there was a delay in salary merit increases from last fiscal year that hit this fiscal year, which was part of the reason in causing this. In addition, the vehicle allowance, my position does not get a vehicle allowance, but there wasn't a vehicle allowance budgeted for this. There was, just not to the extent that we needed. Actually, no, there was not. So we need to account for that vehicle allowance for the AGM for this position.
Right, that allowance would be put in the administrative budget. The AGM is in the administrative budget.
Wait,
and that needs to
so the AGM's vehicle allowance was not budgeted as part of the item for the overall external affairs?
His contract was developed at the time the budget was being developed, and that was an oversight in putting it in, and it should have been put in the administrative budget where his salary is charged.
So there's another adjustment that's going to come? Okay, all right.
So we've been working with Mr. Manbahal on identifying some of these issues to make sure that they're addressed, and we're working actually to make sure that it's corrected for the coming fiscal year budget.
So is there a need for a vehicle allowance? Because if it's supposed to be in administration, why does it need to be here?
It was added here, and that was erroneous. It needs to be a part of the administrative budget where his salary comes from.
So are we taking that 7,200 out then?
Yes.
Which you're asking for here?
No, not this year, because he is receiving it from this. We have to cover the.
So what you're saying is for next year?
Yes, for the next fiscal year. We're going to leave it as it is, cover what was used, and then for the rest of the year, and then next year, that's going to get transferred into administration.
All right.
And you see salaries are over here. That's because in the water resources management budget, there's a salary, but it's unspent. That's because it's being erroneously charged here.
So the water resources manager is being charged to external affairs,
and it shouldn't be.
To public affairs
Yes.
right now.
And
it should be in the other one.
It should be where the money is at.
Okay, so let's make sure that we definitely get that fixed for next year.
Yes,
But thank you, Ricky. So Nassim, operating supplies and uniforms,
Yeah,
can you explain that line? I mean, you're.
of course, and we did have that conversation last
Yeah.
week.
Mhm.
In regards to that, there was new phones that needed to be purchased. One of our former employees, her vehicle was broken into and there were items that were stolen. So we had to make sure that we had to take that into account. So that is why we are requesting these additional funds, or moving funds around.
Okay, and then for the professional services, other consultants?
Yeah, I can go over that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm having a real hard time on that particular line because we budgeted one figure, you spent very little of that, and now we're being asked for an $83,000 increase when you've only spent 40% for the year through February.
So part of it is it was identified that, for example, federal lobbyists, those invoices hadn't been paid yet for several months, and now they were paid. However, there are funds currently allocated for state advocacy that I'm not touching. These are funds that are allocated that I'm not touching, and then I know that we have an RFQ.
Hold on. So our federal and state lobbyists comes out of public affairs, not external affairs? As
Correct.
a whole?
Correct.
Okay. Well, all right, that explains it, but
I mean, I'm just looking at the fact that you still have $166,000 budgeted, and we're being asked to add another 83.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand how you're gonna spend that much money in the next 3 months?
Yeah. So part of it is the website. We've been going through the website RFP, and that our website RFP.
We're not gonna be paying them anything probably in the next 3 months, though.
But when I present
next year.
In discussing this with our finance team, I don't want to present it with presenting it for approval with only partial funding. I want to be able to have full funding. So when I do present it for consideration, and if I'm asked the question, do you have full funding for this?
Are you gonna fund it with this year's money, or is this gonna be something that by the time the RFP is done, you're really looking at next fiscal year?
We actually have the schedule completed. It's going to be partial for this year, partial for next year. I was recommending.
Anticipating for this year.
For this year, it would probably be about, I want to say it was 50,000.
Well, I think, we can't talk on any items or any policy, but the external affairs, we got to run that back. The RFP needs to come back through the external affairs committee. We have some questions about the website and where that's going and how it's working.
It's not out of committee.
It's not out of committee.
Oh, no.
It's going back, yeah.
That's kind of my point, is that by the time we adopt this today, we're gonna be at the end of the year before we blink, and again, even without this adjustment, you have $166,000 in there as of February with encumbrances. So why do we need to add another 83? I mean, board members, if you look at the bottom of page 26, you'll see what I'm talking about.
When we approved the budget, there are specific items that were allocated for example, state advocacy, those aren't within my control, because, I don't really want to utilize those
Do we have
funds.
bills for that?
No, we currently have,
No.
I think the president wanted to do an RFQ on that.
Okay, but again, we're not gonna get any bills between now and probably June, so
Well, then
again, why the increase? I'm trying to understand why we're increasing something that is being underspent drastically.
And I want to coincide with Director Young that with the public affairs vis-a-vis external affairs, does appear to be a lack of clarity with what's being spent, which portion of the budget it's coming out of, everything from the vehicles stipend to, lobbying on the federal, state level, just various things. And we do, and I'm going to say this, that you all, we need to come back to look at what we're doing, because in several categories we're not spending money, but then we're asking for money but we haven't spent the money that is a substantial amount that's already allocated. And I think Director Young is correct when he says that, you know, some of this stuff probably needs to come back to External Affairs Committee, and that we want to have an opportunity to review it again because we have some questions.
I'm just looking at it from a time standpoint that we're not gonna ever get to spend that probably in the next couple months.
I think, and I want you to note this because I'm having difficulty.
No, turn
If
the
we can
microphone
take
up.
this up. We can take this up in the External Affairs Committee of a really distinguishing external affairs and public affairs.
I would agree.
And I think in the next External Affairs Committee, let's have that discussion. If there's overlaps or not overlaps, or if we got a position that we really do not need. And I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Let's have that
Yeah.
discussion.
Well, I know one of the things why we did hire one of the consultants who ended up doing a lot of day-to-day work was to put together a report analysis of what's going on
Right.
with the External Affairs, Public Affairs Committee. I think we should be getting some report to us within the next 30 days.
You think by the next meeting or?
I'm not sure if it'll be the next meeting, but I'm confident. What I understand was with April was the deadline for them to issue their report regarding public affairs and external affairs and like what's going on in that department, because we have some questions. Like I said, we don't have a state lobbyist. We don't. Our communication strategy is not where it needs to be. The staffing is not where it needs. I mean, we can. Well, like I said, we're coming back to the meeting on that.
Let's have that discussion. Yeah. Let's put it on the agenda for that next meeting.
And I do, as you requested, Dr. Young, I did inform the consultant to attend the April External Affairs Committee to provide highlights on his report. And from the last conversation the consultant and I had regarding his report was potentially being here April 16th, the second meeting in April to present to the board that report.
Okay.
Missing, I mean, I'm okay to kind of get it back to the budget here. I'm okay with keeping you where you're at, but I mean, I'm not convinced of an urgent need to add in this category.
I'm fine also where we're at, especially if we know that, like, for example, the RFQ for state advocacy, it will, if it's not completed in time, that was $50,000.
But like I said, I mean, you still have 166,000
Right.
in there. So Ricky, I mean, if the board's agreeable, I would like to remove that increase. I don't think we're gonna need it for the time being.
We did have, okay, that's fine.
But I also think that the 20 part of it is that it's not just the increase, it's the way that it is placed in the budget, that there's an increase in one portion, but then another portion, there are monies that are unspent. And so the issue is probably more for formality in the budget and what we need to do in order to smooth it out versus we're asking for another increase, but the monies that was allocated, it hasn't been spent and may cover our actual costs. And then the other thing, and the reason why we want to come back to external affairs, is because there may be other, as far as timing, it may never make it to this year's budget too. So that's the thing, like some of the stuff may be, you know, like you said, the RFQ, or even what we're doing with the website or something else, it may not make it. And so I think that's part of what he's saying too.
I mean, I'm not saying let's not do those things. I'm just saying realistically, that's gonna probably be in next year's budget.
And I think Ricky and I have been actively working with his team trying to get this organized because one thing goes in one, the other one goes in the other.
Yeah.
So
well, and we understand too, part of it is not anything as far as structuring the budget and how things happen and what got assigned to what.
Ricky, can I ask a question for the CFO in regards to, I know we're gonna slash those funds and that's fine.
Well, we didn't say slash,
We're not gonna allocate those additional funds requested.
right now, but we're gonna ask them to go back and look at what's there and figure out where we're gonna be, if that makes sense.
I just wanna make sure that we have the current, PR consultant that wasn't allocated, so I wanna make sure that we take that into account, that we have the money in there already available.
That was part of the 83.
Right, that's why, so we just gotta make sure, okay.
If it's an urgent item, we can always make an adjustment.
Make an adjustment.
Well, but the additional, company is up, what, 24,000?
23.
23, and you have 166 remaining.
Yeah, so that's what we're saying, it's just the way that the budget, what's assigned, what, yeah, the structural has nothing, yeah.
It's got a structural problem that we need to resolve.
I think what Nasim expressed earlier is that, for example, our national lobbyist has not been charged here, so adding to that 110, you add another 120,
Well,
that takes it up to 200.
Well, no, what was stated is that they hadn't charged us from the year prior and that it got put into this year.
Right, but the other encumbered, obviously those funds through February were encumbered, and a check was issued to them. However, I don't believe we've encumbered
for the state.
For the federal, I don't think we've encumbered March through June, but I'll go back and verify that.
No,
Right.
March through June.
Through June hasn't been encumbered yet, so that's
Right.
12.5 a month.
We have the issue of Daniel, our safety consultant, is coming out of here as well. That's about $90,000.
Yeah, we've been.
Why is Daniel coming out of?
Well, okay, so this is where I'm at with the, because I'm gonna end this right now. Can I take some, whatever's going on with public affairs, we wanna come back and you understand, I think, Ricky, you understand our concerns.
I do.
We're gonna come back, relook at this, and we don't wanna repeat, definitely for the 2021 budget, as far as making sure the right things are in the right place. There's a lot of concern and a need of clarity going on with external affairs, public affairs, and what's happening in that area, whether it is operationally, there's concerns, budgetarily, there are concerns, the plan, staff, there's a range of concerns, but we're going to want you to, but I think you understand what our concerns are. I'm not trying to cut off your questions, but this is going just further down the rabbit hole.
And I know Director Young, we spoke last week and you had questions about the others. Some of the unused funds that we had, a big portion of it is almost 100% of my time has been spent on media inquiries. And I haven't been able to really focus on the public affair component of, working with our community affairs representative and our public affairs analyst and getting them out in the community. So I do apologize about that, but we've been absolutely inundated with media inquiries over the past year.
That's why I haven't asked any questions on that. I understand the predicament we've been in lately. So, and with everything going on right now, it's like, yeah, I know we're not going to spend the printing and all this other stuff because we're not going to be doing the events, But yeah, so one thing which might be helpful, Ricky, is to almost have it broken down in the sub of that line, so you can see all the different consultants that flow into that one line. But anyways, but moving on.
Let's revisit that.
Moving on.
This process.
So
This process is really identifying.
Yeah. So this one, I'm not sure if it's for you, Nasim, or Mr. General Manager, but the grants and rebates, the 5720 department, who can speak towards that?
That's not me. I'm gonna go ahead and excuse myself. Thank you.
Because I know we had talked about this during the budget time, but can you just maybe remind us what this was supposed to be used for? Because it doesn't look like we've actually used hardly anything.
Okay. We ended the rebate program, so there won't be any expenditures anymore.
Okay.
The rebate program. And
So that's why we're taking the 60,000.
yes.
Okay.
We ended the program, what happened to the the excess money that was in the account?
It's being removed now.
Moved out?
It's being moved out now, yes. And what had happened is, the idea is that for those people who have not cashed their checks, it was just gonna be charged to another account.
Yes, because we are, I mean, it's so old that we just go ahead and cancel the checks and reissue them from our general account.
Okay, so this is the customer rebate, which we did.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, and then for the professional services of their consultants, what were we anticipating there? Because it doesn't look like we haven't spent any of that 85,000.
Someone to help with pursuit of grants.
Gotcha, okay, all right, so we're taking that out then, okay.
Are
All right.
the telecommuters still on the, line?
I'm almost done, I swear.
You swear you're almost done.
Well, I'm almost
Yeah, we gonna take you at your word. Where's this gavel? We're about to, you know.
Well, we're up
but
I'm up to the last page.
Right. Cause,
Okay.
you know.
So, you know, I just want to thank all the department heads and directors for going through my questions. And Ricky, thank you for all your adjustments on this. And I'm pleased to see that our debt conversions ratio is a little better. And if we take out that 83, it'll be even better. So, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
You're welcome. One question I do have, moving forward, so I can better prepare. Is this a good format for presentation?
For a mid-year?
For mid-year, year-end?
Yeah, for a mid-year,
Mid-year,
summary.
yeah. Well, the year-end is completely different, you know.
We need to talk in the finance committee about the approach to the annual budget.
Yes.
And the way we want to present the annual budget and how we want to go about that. This format for the mid-year, like I said before, is perfect.
Thank you.
It really shows us, at least from my standpoint, the overall picture.
What was I going to say? As far as the 2021 budget and the timeline that we received, the budget calendar, are we where we need to be right now that we've concluded with the mid-year? Is everything, do you have all the tools you need in order for us to make sure that we're on time and we get the budget that we're looking for?
I would say for now, yeah, we are, you know, there was a little delay, but I can jump back on track. And I will start that process right after the decision is made on the mid-year. But I will have to go back in and a little bit of background. Once we get through this, then my accounting staff has to go back in and actually apply all of these adjustments, make the journal entries for the staff movement, things of that nature. So it takes a little bit of time, and then we are also going to get into the prep mode for a year-end audit. So there's a lot of things happening. I have the policies and procedures that's being drafted and going to be reviewing it, but I'm dedicating myself. And then also, I don't know how long this telecommuting process will work. So all of those things taken into consideration may alter the schedule a little bit, but I can't really. Yeah.
The goal is to have the budget ready for the first meeting in June. Based on delays, we'll do it the second meeting in June.
Okay, we need to be careful that we get the June 30th deadline.
Yeah.
We have to, yes. Really.
So we need to look at it so that we beat that deadline.
Right, so the goal is first meeting in
Not just
June.
get up to the deadline, but have a few weeks before the deadline.
Right.
As I looked at your outline, we do that, but what you're saying now, there may be some delays. If there's some delays, let's do the loops now. There's someone coming in.
And that's what we plan to do is, you know, take a look at what's happening right now that'll affect if there's any impact on our schedule. But I'll tell you this, my ultimate goal is to get it to the board mid-June for a June 30th adoption.
No, first week of June. We're going to
Or first week of June for June 30th.
First meeting in June.
Yeah, first meeting in June, sorry.
It wouldn't be the first I mean, even if it gets delayed with no special meeting, we've done that.
Yeah,
But we'll get it
Exactly.
done before the 30th.
Yeah,
for sure.
thank you.
And we will manage the challenges with staff, telecommuting, we'll manage that. Then we just need to work with the board for the workshops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. President, I'll make the motion that we adopt the mid-year budget as amended with the changes we've discussed, which is really only that one.
The 83,000, so I just want to be clear, we're gonna remove that adjustment.
That's what I'm proposing.
We're in a special meeting, you can't adopt a budget in a special meeting, you got to have a regular meeting to adopt it.
Yeah.
Wait, Mr. Tafoya,
Our schedule
Yeah,
calls
but-
for.
Mr. Tafoya, hold on. Dr. Young just raised a point. Director Gregory Young made a motion for us to adopt the mid-year budget. Dr. Clifford Young raised a concern that we cannot adopt a mid-year budget during a special meeting. Can you please address this parliamentary procedure?
Yes, my recollection was that you noticed this as a study session. And so I think Dr. Young is correct that you would need to take this to a regular meeting and adopt the mid-year budget.
Okay,
We can recommend that. this-
I'll withdraw my motion.
but we're recommending that it be adopted. We can recommend,
Put it
okay.
on the
Yeah,
regular schedule.
and yeah, I know, and we'll put it on, yes.
And we can put it as a consent item.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I would have to come back.
Yeah, understand. All right, any other questions or concerns before we adjourn?
No, sir.
No, sir, all right.
President, Mr. President?
Oh, yes.
Mr. President?
Oh, Mr. Pereira.
You still need to open up the public communications, and we're still waiting to hear from Mrs. Barrera
Yes.
regarding the update regarding the COVID-19.
Yes.
Before you adjourn.
Yes, so, so two things. One, in regard to public comment, Ms. Ashe, can you read off the statement regarding public comment? We're still getting adjusted to this whole teleworking thing, teleconferencing and how to do it and the Brown Act, so please excuse us if we're not as smooth as usual. Okay.
Any person wishing to speak to the Board of Directors on matters listed on the agenda is asked to complete a speaker card and submit it to the district clerk. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Under the State of California Brown Act, the Board of Directors is prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the posted agenda. Comments related to notice, public hearing, and business matters will be heard during the occurrence of the item.
Okay. Any, Mr. Faruqi, any public comment?
At this time, no.
No public comment, okay. So, Ms. Barrera, can you please give us an update regarding our response to the COVID-19 pandemic? Is she there?
Mrs. Barrera, are you still on the phone?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, the president has asked for your update regarding COVID-19, please.
Okay, before I get started, I wanted to apologize for me thinking abruptly. I wasn't under the impression or communicated that this was an actual board meeting. So I had a bit of a knee-jerking reaction when I was told not to speak, so.
Oh, no.
Taken out of phone.
But yeah, and you, Ms. Barrera, there's no need to apologize to us. We're all getting used to this telecommuting. It's so much easier. We've seen your decorum and how you presented to us, and we know you're an absolute professional, and we're trying to get used to this teleconferencing thing. So I don't think any board member or staff took it that way. Thank you for your contributions.
Thank you. But before I get started, because again, it is kind of, I'm on the phone and I don't see what's happening. Is this closed session or is this this is a closed session, right?
No.
It is open session, so there may be matters that if you know find it necessary, you can brief the board on separate from in closed session or on a call.
Okay. So with the recent request report that went out last night with San Bernardino. There's 4 more cases that they reported, making the total 9 in San Bernardino County. The activation level is still remaining at 2. And then in regards, do you want me to go over the telecommuting document and the pandemic?
No,
I reviewed
if there are some very high level, highlights and, you know, I don't know if we need raw detail, if there's just some points that you think we need to be aware of.
Right, because you've already voted on the telecommuting. I sent my notes along with Daniel to Clarence. Again, these are just our suggestions if you want to take them into play or adopt them. For the pandemic, that one is a little bit more, it has to be more specific in criteria, which I will, again, I haven't sent you my notes for that one. But that needs to take something from FEMA and Stanford Act. So I will send you my notes, and again, these are just our suggestions on if you want to take them or not.
Okay. Okay, well, if there are any additional notes or
Mr. President? The pandemic response that you passed as emergency item today, as Mrs. Barrera mentioned, there may be some tweaks that need to happen to that, just like the telecommuting policy. So we will work with her, and if we need to bring back modifications, you can modify that policy, you know, at your next meeting.
Yes, absolutely, agreed.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Agreed, I agree with you.
And then
So,
Mrs. Barrera, you know, as you mentioned earlier, you were asking about whether or not we were in closed session or not. Are there any items that you believe we need to go into closed session on in order to advise the board, or was that just an informational question?
That was just an informational question. If I can just be, you know, moving forward brief, I just received a text message that it was a conference call, right? So I mean, if I could just be brief in a message, we're having a board meeting, or just so that I have context of what I'm walking into, because as the president mentioned, we are on conference calls, I can't really see, you know, don't have that luxury anymore, right?
and Ms. Barrera, okay, we understood, Ms. Barrera. And the other thing is moving forward too, you can watch it live on Facebook and YouTube. It's available.
Okay.
All right.
You're live streaming right now, okay?
Yes, and so for example, I'm watching the meeting right now as I'm also listening to it.
Okay.
And I would recommend in the future that you do that as well, so you can see the actual meeting as we're going through it. And Naseem Faruqi can get with you in order to give you the information that you'll need to be able to watch it next time.
Okay, well, we have a motion to adjourn right now, and so as far as your questions and concerns, I do understand them and ask you, the general manager will follow up with you in that regard. Thank you.
Awesome.